Episode 2, The Six Wives Saga. Love, lies, and beheadings. Every dictator has obsessions. Hitler had his racial theories. Stalin had his paranoia. And Henry VIII? His obsession was wives. 6 of them. 6 women who became entangled in the storm of his power, his charm, and ultimately his rage. This is not just a love story. It is a blood-soaked saga of betrayal, faith, lust, and death. A story where the bedroom and the throne were inseparable, where one man's desire could change the fate of an entire nation. And like all obsessions, it would destroy not only those around him, but Henry himself. Catherine of Aragon was no ordinary queen. She was Spanish royalty, daughter of the legendary Ferdinand and Isabella, the same rulers who funded Columbus's voyage across the Atlantic. Strong, devout, dignified. She married Henry in 1509, soon after he took the throne. For over 20 years, she was his queen. She shared his triumphs, stood by him in war, even ruled England in his absence. She gave him a daughter, Mary. But she failed in the one duty Henry valued most, producing a surviving son. At first, Henry's love for her was real. He called her his dearest wife. He even trusted her with power, rare for a woman in that era. But as the years passed and sons kept dying, his devotion curdled into frustration. By the 1520s, Catherine was in her 40s. Henry was restless, hungry for youth, and desperate for a male heir. Catherine's greatest crime was not disloyalty or treason. It was simply being unable to give him the son he craved. Like many dictators after him, Henry needed someone to blame. And he chose his wife. Enter Anne Boleyn. Dark eyes. Sharp wit. A woman unlike any Henry had ever known. And wasn't the kind of mistress you could use and discard. She was clever, ambitious, and dangerous. She refused to sleep with him unless he made her queen. For Henry, she was intoxicating. For Catherine, she was a nightmare. For England, she was a storm about to break. To marry Anne, Henry needed to annul his marriage to Catherine. But the Pope refused. Catherine was too well connected. Her nephew was Charles V, the powerful Holy Roman Emperor. To insult her was to insult Europe. But Henry would not be denied. He turned on Rome. He declared himself the head of the Church of England. In one stroke, he shattered centuries of Catholic unity. Millions of Englishmen woke up one day to find themselves no longer Catholics but subjects of a brand new church. Why? Because one man wanted one woman. This is the level of obsession dictators share. They bend nations for personal desires. In 1533, Henry secretly married Anne Boleyn. Catherine was banished. The Pope excommunicated him. England was cut off from Rome, and gave birth the same year. Henry held his breath, waiting for a son. The child was a girl. Elizabeth. The golden boy's rage burned hotter. And once adored, became a target. She miscarried multiple times. Henry, ever impatient, grew tired of her sharp tongue. He began to see her not as the solution, but as the problem. And so, like Catherine before her, Anne's fate was sealed. In 1536, Anne Boleyn was arrested on charges of adultery, incest, and treason. The evidence was laughable. But truth didn't matter. Henry wanted her gone. On May 19th, Anne walked to the scaffold at the Tower of London. Dressed in crimson, she prayed, forgave her enemies, and laid her head upon the block. The sword fell. Henry remarried within days. Jane Seymour was everything Anne Boleyn was not. Quiet, submissive, gentle. She didn't challenge Henry. She soothed him. And most importantly, she gave him a son. In 1537, Jane gave birth to Prince Edward. Henry was ecstatic. His heir was finally here. The Tudor dynasty was secure. But joy was short-lived. Days after the birth, Jane died of infection. Henry was devastated. Unlike his other wives, he mourned her sincerely. For the rest of his life, he would speak of Jane as his true wife. But the machinery of obsession never stops. Henry needed more marriages, more alliances, more women to fill the void. By now, Henry was aging. His once athletic body had grown heavy, plagued by ulcers and pain. But his ego remained sharp. In 1540, his advisors arranged a marriage with and of Cleves, a German princess. Henry agreed after seeing her portrait. But when he met her in person, he recoiled. He famously called her a Flanders mare. Still, the marriage went through briefly. But Henry could not consummate it. Within 6 months, it was annulled. Surprisingly, Anne survived the fiasco. She accepted her fate gracefully, was given a generous settlement, and remained in England as the king's beloved sister. She outlived Henry and every other wife. If Anne of Cleves was a political marriage, Catherine Howard was pure passion. She was barely a teenager when Henry, now in his late 40s and obese, married her. To him, she was youth, beauty, a reminder of his golden days. To her, he was power, security, perhaps even a burden. But Catherine was reckless. She took lovers, whispered secrets, and lived as though she were still free. When rumors reached Henry, an investigation followed. Catherine was found guilty of adultery, treason for a queen. In 1542, she was executed. Barely 19 years old. Her last words were heartbreaking. "I die a queen, but I would rather have died the wife of Culpeper." For Henry, it was another wound. Another betrayal. Another reminder that his search for love was doomed. By his final marriage, Henry was a broken man. His body was bloated, his legs ulcerated, his temper violent. Catherine Parr, his 6th wife, was not chosen for beauty or lust, but for survival. She was intelligent, cautious, and diplomatic. She cared for Henry in his declining years, managed his household, and even reconciled him with his daughters, Mary and Elizabeth. She outlived him, a rare triumph in this deadly saga. 6 wives. 2 divorced, 2 executed, 1 died in childbirth, 1 survived. It is easy to turn this into a rhyme, a schoolchild's chant. But behind each phrase lies tragedy, blood, and betrayal. Henry's obsession with control destroyed not only the women he married, but the stability of his kingdom. He tore England away from Rome, executed friends, betrayed allies, and turned his personal desires into national policy. This is what makes him less a king and more a dictator. But if Henry's love life was bloody, his war with the world was bloodier still. Because the 6 Wives saga was only the personal drama. The public stage, the executions, the rebellions, the religious wars was yet to come. In the next episode, we'll see Henry at his most terrifying. A man who turned against his people, his church, and even his own blood.